Well, good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, and for those of you who still keep track, this means we have updates on today's unemployment numbers. And we have a show that'll help us remember it's the people that are our economy. So, here are the numbers. New unemployment numbers, uninsurance claims filed for unemployment insurance continue to climb. 5.2 million new claims reported in the past week. Now, tallied up, that's 22 million over 4 weeks. To break that down further, it's about 730,000 people losing their jobs every day for 30 straight days. And we know that's likely still an undercount. Now, those of us here at Community Change Action believe that every family, regardless of where you live or your race or immigration status, needs and deserves housing, access to health care, and living wages without fear of being detained or incarcerated for nonviolent offenses. And as we've mentioned before, it's particularly Black, Latino, and immigrant communities, and especially women of color, that are disproportionately suffering and dying from COVID-19. Let us not forget the bigotry and violence against our Asian family members, thanks to discrimination, disinformation, and plain old fashioned racism. Now, you might be hearing the false narrative that COVID-19 is the quote unquote great equalizer, but we are saying that this couldn't be further from the truth. It's true that anyone can get the disease, but what this virus shows is that it's worsened inequality and racism in this country. The people who are dying from it and feeling the worst of its brunt are people who live on the brink, and especially low income Black, brown, and immigrant folks. Now, the virus shows more than anything how America discriminates against people struggling to get by. And that's why we need to address this systemic inequality with a bold, inclusive, and caring agenda. We know a few things from COVID-19 and how it's attacking the most vulnerable of us. The pandemic has exacerbated existing race and gender disparities, leaving marginalized people of color less able to safely shelter in place. Emerging lived experiences highlight a bleak reality. Black, Latino, and immigrant workers who keep our country running, especially during this global pandemic, are being left behind with little or no relief. Black and brown workers and women are more likely to be essential workers in unsafe working conditions. Undocumented workers are losing their jobs while blocked from accessing basic resources. Just look at stories of particularly undocumented workers in meatpacking plants or in agriculture who pick our produce. Very, very unsafe working conditions. Mass incarceration puts a disproportionate number of Black, brown, and immigrant people at risk. Shelter-in-place policies increase the risk of domestic violence and disadvantage women, and especially women of color, who shoulder most childcare duties. So we need to address all of these unequal systemic conditions that marginalize women, that marginalize Black, brown, and immigrant communities, and leave us more susceptible to financial hardship and even death, as we've seen during this COVID-19 crisis. We're calling for policies that protect all people living in America, including undocumented and mixed status families, and especially for the duration of the current coronavirus crisis, which we'll be sharing through our website, communitychange.org. So I'll make sure there's a link after this video for you to take action. Now, today, I want to welcome a very, very close friend of mine who has been experiencing parts of this story. It's one thing to hear the numbers. It's another thing to hear the stories of people most directly affected. And so I want to welcome my very, very, very good friend, one of my best friends in the world. He's kind of like my little brother, Chris Jackson, who is a professional dancer. He's from the west side of Chicago originally. He danced for many years, I think 7 at Alvin Ailey in New York. He was in The Lion King on Broadway for a couple of years. Most recently, he was in Porgy and Bess at the Met Opera. He currently teaches dance at the Ailey School, and he's an adjunct professor at NYU. And this pandemic has affected his life on several fronts. So, Chris, thanks for joining this morning.
Thank you for having me.
And talk to me about how COVID-19 has changed your life. Just describe your experiences in the last several weeks.
Well, I will start by saying that I'm out of New York City, and I would say March 7th, I returned from San Francisco from an opportunity that I got with a choreographer. And when I came back, I noticed the city was starting to shut down, but there wasn't real fear yet, I feel like, in the city. So at that moment, I was on the phone with my best friend and his wife, and they reached out to me to come to DC to come stay with them. And at that time, I realized that this was something very serious. And I feel like it's affecting me the most because as a freelance performer and teacher out of New York City, all of my work is in the studios. It is traveling. It is working with students, and school is out. So at this moment, I'm feeling like
Mm.
unemployment is that what we're talking about now?
So
Unemployment has
let's go there. Let's go there because so
yeah,
basically work dried up for you, right?
yeah, work dried
No,
up.
no more classes, no more performances. You also sometimes judge dance competitions. No
Correct,
more competitions. So
correct.
what happened when you lost work?
Well, when I lost work, I was pretty much down to like, how am I going to pay my bills and nickel and diming and putting money to the side, and how am I going to make this work? I applied for unemployment
And through New York State.
through New York State. I
And
applied for
walk us through that process because it's been a bit challenging. So walk us through.
So March 10th, I applied for unemployment. And might I say that this is my second time applying. The first time I applied was in 2004. So it's been over 15 years since I've had unemployment. Nevertheless, I'm in the system. So when I applied on March 10th, it let me know that there was a waiting week or a waiting period that would be waived,
Hmm.
which is great news because that means you're going to get money a lot sooner. 1 week goes by. You have to keep certifying benefits each week, even though you're not back at work or you don't see any money coming in. You still have to keep certifying each week. So 1 week goes by, 2 weeks go by, 3, 4 weeks go by. I'm actually in my fifth week,
Mm.
and I just received a check yesterday, 2 days ago, from the unemployment for 2 weeks worth of benefits. So I still haven't received all of the money that I'm entitled to. And you can't really reach anyone on the phone. You can't. There are no emails attached to anything. So it's tough.
So tell us what happened when you tried to reach people on the phone. What you were given a number to call. What
I
happened?
was given a number to call, and I actually was able to get through all the way to the very end of the number that they give you. And when you get to the very end of this call, it cuts out. It's like beep, it just goes out.
And how long did you wait? On
I probably was on the phone about 12 minutes,
Mhm.
but that's only because I actually hadn't got to anyone yet. So I
Mhm.
was just on the phone waiting around, going through all of the pressing the buttons and doing different things. And then by the time I got to the end of the call, it makes you believe that you're
Mm.
going to be connected to the source that's going to get you to the right person.
Mhm.
And then the call fades out.
And then what happened? And then what happened? So you got cut off,
So,
and
so
then
I get cut off. Actually, a week goes by. Let's go back to last week. Last Thursday, I get a phone call from a guy named Jay. He works for the New York State Department of Labor, and he lets me know that my claim, there's something wrong. There's something wrong with my claim. Maybe it's something that I filled out incorrectly, or something that I circled or checked off wrong. So he let me know that it was something about severance. He fixes it on my claim. Lets me know that the funds will be released today, which was Thursday, last Thursday, and that in 2 or 3 days I will receive all 4 weeks, which it should be five, all 4 weeks of my funds. Tuesday comes, I get 2 weeks worth of benefits. I have the guy's personal number and his extension. I called back that number actually this morning. It doesn't work anymore.
mm, mm. Um, so a lot of challenges with at least New York State's unemployment system, which also goes to our earlier point about there probably being an undercount because you were able to get through and actually receive at least 2 weeks of payment, but a lot of people probably still haven't gotten through or still haven't filed or still don't know if they're eligible. Chris, talk to me about healthcare for a minute. Do you have health insurance right now?
I currently do not have health insurance. I've had health insurance most of my adult life,
Mhm.
being on Broadway and being in Alvin Ailey companies that have unions and provide Medicare and all types of different health insurances. Being a freelancer now is the
Mhm.
hardest because I'm
Mhm.
part time and maneuvering in so many different routes.
You have
Um,
lots of
s-
gigs, right? You have the
yes,
A-Lead
the
thing,
gig, the gig.
You have
But I
performances.
am a part of Actors Equity Association, which is the Theater Broadway Union in New York
Mhm.
City, and it does allow access to clinics and doctors
Mhm.
to receive health care. Actually, um, funny story quickly, I was at a friend's house years ago and I washed my clothes. He had a pet tarantula spider. The spider ended up in my clothes. The needles ended up coming out into my clothes. I had started itching all over. So I had to run over to the Actors Equity Clinic to get looked at because I didn't have health insurance. So
Right.
and I, didn't feel like I needed to go to the hospital either at that point. So
I hope you didn't bring any tarantula things in my house, brother. I'm terrified of spiders. I do have a little arachnophobia, but I digress. Chris, talk to me about how's your family and some loved ones in Chicago holding up? Talk to me about what you're hearing from family members and how they're surviving this crisis.
I actually have several family members, not in my immediate family, but several family members, cousins and aunts that are diagnosed and tested positive for coronavirus. I actually have an uncle who's on ICU as we speak today,
Hmm.
fighting for his life. He is a former NBA basketball player with the Chicago Bulls
Hmm.
and big mentor of mine. And it's been really tough, but all we can do is hope and pray and put the good fight up. It's all a waiting game at this point.
Mhm.
Because we're seeing so many lives being taken from left and right and up and down that it's all just a waiting game, and to see how much we can just be there and support our loved ones.
And I sometimes overhear some of your conversations. I promise you, I'm not a distant fan, I'm not trying to snitch, but
Uh-oh.
talk to me about the conversations you're having with your friends in the dance world, and how are your friends and peers and work colleagues surviving this pandemic and economic crisis?
Well, it's actually been great that I feel like a lot of us stay connected, obviously through social media, and a lot of us, have created these Zooms and really been able to connect with each other. It seems like that people my age are also getting coronavirus, and it's not the stigma
Mm,
of people over 65 or just people with underlying conditions. That there are people who are healthy actually
mm, mm,
getting this disease, but they're getting through it and they're fighting. And like, I just have a friend named Steven who was in ICU, and he was 36 years old. I'm
mm,
36 years old. So he's an opera singer. So he just came out of ICU maybe a week ago, but he was in there for 14 days.
mm,
And it really lets you know that we all need to stay home. We have to quarantine because it's not one of those things that has uh, what you call it, a bullet
mhm.
directed at one particular audience. It's not the case. But I do think the spirits of everyone in New York is still up as much as they can be, especially for my friends in the Broadway and dance community. Um,
Chris, what are they doing for work? What's your sense of?
they are doing exactly what I'm doing, which is
Mm,
halfway between nothing and working through Zoom and to teach classes and
mm,
privates. There's a thing called privates in the dance community where young kids get to perform their solos for upcoming competitions, and we get to like judge their solos and give them critiques. So just little things like that is all we have. We work check to check, gig to gig, job to job, and we
mhm.
really look forward to those moments. So right now is the toughest moment for us. We really need unemployment. We really need many different outlets, resources. I just applied for Dance New York City Resource Fund to receive $1,000 check, grant money during this period. So I reached out to them for that, and there's many different things that I'm trying to do to supplement and support myself in this time. But I do have my best friend who's helping me out, so I think it's been working out so far.
So, Chris, next to last question. You probably overhear some of my conversations, my work conversations during the day too, and you keep up with the news. Just talk to us for a minute about what you think needs to be done. What actions need to be taken, whether it's streamlining the unemployment insurance system in New York State or the federal government helping out, just from where you sit or stand or dance or twirl. What do you think needs to be done to help you and others like you in your situation?
Well, like any pyramid, it starts at the top. So it has to start from the government. It has to start with our president. You know, it has to start with Congress, and there just needs to be laws implemented in place. Like I feel like weeks ago there should have been a national order for our country so that like everything could have slowed down or tightened up and condensed down to create order. And I just feel like right now we're still in chaos. We keep talking about the plateau,
Mm.
but I want to talk about the drop, you know,
Mhm.
soon.
Mhm.
And I feel like as long as we continue to keep staying home, it's not a, they thought it would be a 2 or 3 week thing. I feel like it's a 2 to 3, 4 month thing. And I think as long as we stay home and continue to do what we're doing and washing our hands and staying safe and wearing our masks, things will get better. But we need patience and we need help from our government.
And I'm assuming
Um,
cash would help.
Say that again.
I'm assuming cash would help from the
Cash would
government
definitely
and
help.
some
A
other things.
stimulus check, unemployment checks, grants, any and everything will help
Mhm.
at this very moment. But yeah, it's, we can't just rely on our family and our loved one. We need it to come from the government. We need it to come from the top to work its way down.
And I hope your mother and your family is watching this. I think my mother might be watching this. Just final words. What would you say to everybody out there in terms of advice on how to survive this pandemic crisis and this economic crisis?
I would say stay in contact with your loved ones.
Mm.
Um, find things that make you happy besides the news. Because from what I'm learning with the news is that it is coronavirus 100% all the way throughout the day, which we should know about every single detail that comes with that. But I do believe that we need a little bit of I need a little namaste moment or something that makes you laugh throughout the day, whether it's a phone call to your family member, whether it's a
Mm.
TV show or anything that can just keep you in that sane, good place to be at that you used to be in. And I think that's where I am now. I'm in that place. My best friend opened his home to me. I'm in that place right now.
Well, thank you, Chris. And I just want to highlight as we close out here, it is very important that we physically distance, but maintain social solidarity with each other and our loved ones. It's not social distance, it's physical distance, social solidarity. Thank you, Chris, for sharing your story with us. I want to encourage all of you to share your stories with us and especially with your elected officials. And we have a campaign where you can join us in this movement for a bold, inclusive, and caring agenda. You'll see the banner at the bottom of the screen. Please, please, please tell your stories. Tell them to especially those in power so they hear you loud and clear. And together, we can definitely overcome this. Thanks again to Christopher Jackson for joining me as my guest this morning. Thanks, roommate. Thanks, roommate.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next Thursday. Thanks, everybody, for checking us out and tuning in.